Welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Graveyard House Rebuild. This is a house I have acquired with my business partner, Howard. The house was purchased completely gutted. There's a graveyard directly in front of it, as you can see. The property is on both sides of the road. 10 acres on the graveyard side, 2 acres on the house side. And in this episode, I'm going to repair a very damaged sill plate that is in the corner back of the house. Back corner, that's my friend's dog. He was visiting the house with me. You can see the house has been gutted. There's no proper layout at the moment. The house was gutted by the previous owner in preparation for it to be fixed up. And I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe he found a couple of problems that maybe were beyond his ability, like what I'm about to show you. And I noticed when I was in the house, and I've done some in-the-moment conversations, which you'll hear, where I talk about why the floor is bent. And it occurred to me that the house footprint on the right side, which is the second edition, the house is originally 1793, and then this edition is about 15 to 20 years later. It's outside of the stone foundation wall, so the house is wider than the stone foundation. And it occurred to me that there must be a knee wall or a small foundation wall around 3 sides of this newer edition. And that's when I realized, what's under that plywood? Why is the floor bending? Why does it seem like it's drooping? So I took all this plywood off. We forewent a house inspection because I just figured we'd make a cash quick sale, which is what we did. I knew there were going to be problems. I didn't realize this problem was there until after I bought the house. We only visited a couple times. We made an offer, and he thought about it. And anyway, we got the house, and this is the first big problem. All these old houses have sill plate and bug damage. And here you can see bug damage straight away, and also a lot of water damage. Those jacks are right here, right now. Now I'm going to open up the floor and see what that sill plate looks like. I know the end of it is rotted here. I want to see how far back it rots and what it needs. And the corner jack stud right there is pretty rotted. You can start to see the daylight, what I pulled out with the claw hammer. See, you can't see, but the floor is considerably drooped like that, which is why I'm jacking this all up, and I'm finding out all the problems. I have a level here, and you can see how far out the bubble is. The floor joists are all bowed like this, and that's because the weight of the building is on all of the joists, and the foundation runs right here. So all I can guess is that this house maybe was a house on top of this foundation that burned down, and they decided to use it, and in the process they said, let's make the house bigger. So they used the foundation, which literally is about 2.5 feet in from the outside walls of the basement, and the house is outside that by 2 to 3 feet. And there's obviously stacked stone right on the earth, where right here it's all deteriorated, which causes the building to droop. This whole drooping and the weight on all of the floor joists make them spring like that. In fact, if you go downstairs and see where they are on the supporting beam here, all these floor joists are up in the air. They're not touching that. So majority of the weight is on the floor joists pushing down, teeter-tottering on the foundation here, causing them to curve like that. Trying to get that curve out. This is that's the joist that comes, that's that joist right there. You can see it right there. It comes all the way across here, comes to there, and is rotted away, and so is this sill plate. So we need to jack both of those sill plates up, and we might begin to get into business, maybe. But first we need to put a jack stud in the corner. Right here is where I noticed that the previous owner definitely was trying his best to figure out how to organize a repair, and he was definitely in over his head. He put that 2x4 into a bunch of rotted wood. You can see how rotted it was, and this is why I say with a house like this, you just got to go full bore, rip it out, and figure out what to do. You know, within reason and within budget. A combination of rot and bug. So both sill plates to the corner are pretty gone, and then we find some construction here in the corner which needs to be ripped out. I'll probably rip out this whole corner of the house and then stud it back in properly. Okay, now it's a couple of hours later. I have this 6x6 with a screw jack at the top. This piece of 4x4 half-inch walled steel, bridging both sill plates on the second floor. I'm going to lift that up and support it a little bit. I'm going to try and see if I can lift it up at least just like a quarter of an inch and then be done. And then this is going to live in the corner while I repair the sill plate on both sides of the corner and the jack stud in the corner. I'm going to try and go right from underneath there all the way down to the top of the new sill plates. About 3 feet on both sides. So now it's a couple of weeks later, and I've assessed, thought it through. I keep saying there's a jack stud in the corner. There is no corner stud. It's just these 2x14 planks that make up the construction of this house. And right there you see the original plaster wall, which is the split lath, which is very old. It's like 1810 to 1830, something like that. That split lath is where it's split and spread and nailed and split and spread and nailed with a hatchet. So that indicates very, very old construction right there. And everything is rotted and needs to be pulled out. I pulled that electric out of there for now. I have a video in the can with a gentleman named Brett Hull, and he walked me through the house. He's an expert, and we answer a lot of questions on the house. But that's in an upcoming video, and I'll talk more about him. Now here I'm jacking the house up. I ultimately jacked this whole part of the house up at least 5 inches, believe it or not. And it became level. It was very subtly drooped, very dramatically drooped, but in a very subtle gradual from all the way across. And as I jack it up, you can see all these other posts becoming loose, which is a good indication that that long sill plate, which is 8x8, was healthy, because you could see that crack there all the way on the other side. The only thing is those few bottle jacks picking it up about 30 feet away. So that's a pretty good indication. I did get some support under there ultimately. And I put this here just so you could see a dramatic movement in a little tiny space. But Brent Hull told me the construction of this house looks like a farmer with a box of tools and a half-ass idea. He said there is no standard construction taking place in this house. He said it's just maybe somebody that had an idea. Let's build a sill plate on a stone wall, put 2x14s raising up, and then build the second floor inside of it. So the whole second floor sill plate is nailed to the inside of these 2xs with nails. So the whole entire second floor is hanging on nails. Ultimately, I will put some proper construction in there, of course, all around the border and inside the building. The whole corner of the house is sunken and rotted. There's nothing holding up the corner of the house. So I have this 6x6 on a big rock holding up the 2 sill plates that carry the second floor right above this area. At the same time, I'm jacking up this sill plate from where it's no longer rotted. That's where it never did get rotted. Up. And the walls are made up of these 2-inch wide. Here you see some bug damage. 2-inch wide by 10, 15, 14 inches in some cases. Wide planks. So that's what the wall is. I'm trying to lift up the whole back of the house a few millimeters at a time. Picking up this whole corner of the house right here. Picking that up like that. Picking that up just like that. With all these screw jacks. And once I get it to what feels right, I'll put some legs under that just for temporary. And then I'll start rebuilding this corner up to the next sill plates. I'm going to rip these out. It was much easier to cut the clapboard from inside because I could see where the seam was, and I just used the Sawzall to cut it down. I realized that these 2x14s go way up. There's an attempt at a really horrible repair by the previous owner. He was really just disguising it for the sale, and it was okay. It's okay. Everything is content. Those 2x14s go up past the second floor timbers right there you see in the corner. They go up past, so it's like balloon framing. I never did find the end. I just had to redefine a new end for all the rotted stuff. And now I'm using timber locks just to keep everything on that sill plate, because now everything's kind of disjointed, falling apart. And I had to chain in the sill plate and pull it in. So not only was the floor drooping, it was kicking out. So I had to pull that sill plate in, I wrapped it with a chain, and down in the basement I connected it to the next big sill plate, which is the one right in the middle of the building. And there I have a 4-ton come along that I got at Tractor Supply, and I was able to pull that outside wall over. You can see here a little bit. I couldn't find the footage of me bottoming it out because I was going a little bit at a time, and I would turn the camera off and let the house creak a little bit, get accustomed to its new position, and then creak some more. But ultimately, you can see here how that's seated all the way in. Timber locks work great in this type of situation as long as it's hitting into healthy wood. These timber locks, I use them for temporary clamping, and also ultimately when I put the new sill plates in, I put several of those in. Here I'm just cutting back past where everything's rotted, and I'm just deciding where the scar is going to be. And ultimately I realized the scar needs to be way up in the air. It had to be. I just had to go back to where everything was fresh again. This is me pulling off that horrible repair. This is all, you can see the spray foam is all new. And this was all just a cosmetic. This was like, let's get through the sale. Which I'm not mad about. Like I said, it was right there in plain sight for me to see. I just was a little too excited about the overall project. And now I got to get rid of this cement. In the 70s and the 60s, I guess construction techniques were, let's cover up all the stone stack with concrete. That'll help. Obviously it doesn't. All it does is trap the moisture and your sill plate rots underneath it, which is obviously the case right there in that little niche. Here I'm cutting back to what's healthy. I'm just also cutting back to what felt level, because that wasn't a level, it wasn't nailed in level. It was level at the corner, but it wasn't level from plank to plank. Now here I'm cutting back as much as I can. The bottom was rotted, but I'm cut out most of the rot in my scarf joint. And now you see with the chainsaw, I'm going to cut back the bottom of that 8x8 sill plate. And you can see into the basement right there. You can see how far back the actual basement wall is from the exterior wall of the house. And then I'm just doing my precision cut with the Sawzall. And there you can see the little chunk I took out, which is going to be the new piece on the replacement part. Same here. I cut until I hit one of my nails that I had just screwed in. So I had to fix the chainsaw blade. And then I got in there and I organized that cut a little bit cleaner. I didn't know exactly where I was, and ultimately I cut it a little bit cleaner. And you see how the sill plate is twisted. I couldn't untwist it. That's part of the consequence of drooping. The wall was pushing the sill plate and it was turning it. So the new sill plate I put in, or the replacement part, is square. Because I left the whole corner of the house open, a bird came in and made a nest. There's lots of bird nests outside under the open eaves of the house. And these two baby birds were just about to fly this day, and I kept trying to put them back in the nest so the mother knew where they were, but they kept jumping out. So I spent the rest of the day with the birds just jumping all around the house. I couldn't get them to stay. This is the very first moment they ever flew. Now back to the repair. This is 8x8-inch hemlock that I get at the sawmill, which is just a couple of miles away from this house. And you see me just hand sawing and using this long chisel to get everything in nice shape to be put in place. This is just hemlock. It's not the most complicated. It's probably not the most longest lasting, but if it stays dry, I'm sure it'll be fine. I've been in this house for 20 years, and there are repairs that I made 20 years ago that still look like I made them yesterday using hemlock. So a lot of people were asking on Instagram what this wood was. I did not want to tell them because I did not want to get an education, and I'm sure I'll get one in the comment section today. But in my humble opinion, this is better than the rotted wood. And I'm sure I'm going to make concessions to keep it dry from this point on. And that is the niche that is on each one of the sill plates to accept the upright wall treatment. And I figured why not use some Type-On 3 to help keep everything a little bit more secure. I know in the scheme of things, glue doesn't do anything, but it'll keep it from creaking. It'll keep it from slipping a little bit once all the screws are in place. And I used 6 and 8-inch timber locks. I used probably about 8 of them. You got to be careful because you could Swiss cheese the hell out of that joint, and then it becomes just another splitty poo situation. And you can see here I'm level coming straight out of the building. I'm level from sill to sill. and I still don't even have the other part in. And here I am just cutting up the parts. You got to be super careful using the chainsaw with no tip guard on it, because that chainsaw will ride up in the air. It's like having a front drive bicycle. When you hit the wall, it's just going to ride up the wall. So I'm being a little carefree here, but I understand the consequences. And between the hand saw, the circ saw, and the chainsaw, I get everything in nice shape. Again here, the glue I know isn't going to keep the building from falling down, but it's going to help keep that from slipping and sliding. The glue really does a lot of work. And it fit nice, just like a glove. And I still have to cut that niche in there for the wall. I don't even know what you call them, the wall planks. There's not even a name for them. The wall planks, the 2-inch thick wall planks. In some cases I was able to recycle some of what I cut out, but of course I used a bunch of new stuff. Some of what I cut out was in good shape. It was just rotted at the end, so that's why I wanted to remove it. And here I am just putting it back in there. Cutting everything to fit. That's also from the local sawmill, so some old stuff, some new stuff. But this is a wacky construction technique. Balloon framing, that 8x8, which makes the joist, well, I don't know what you call it, a rim joist for the upper floor, is literally just surrounded by these planks. There's no interior, I guess there was interior walls that you could see. Well, by the way, the interior wall and framing that you see in there was done by the previous owner. That wasn't existing. The original walls were flat up against the inside of the 2x. So that was his attempt at starting framing. And those are nailed up underneath the rim joist, which obviously creates some structure. So I'm going to possibly redo some of it, maybe not all of it, but also there'll definitely be some interior walls holding up the floor. But it boggles my mind that that whole rim joist is just held up on nails. The bottom is niched, as you saw me cut, but these planks just go up straight past the rim joist for the second floor. They're not niched into it. I thought I was going to find a niche underneath and a niche on top with like a belt in the middle between the upper and lower floors. But when I pulled off everything, I did not see that. Now here I am. I'm basically done with this repair for the moment. I still need to put everything underneath it, of course, but I'm just trying to give some context. So that was a pretty big job. I just wanted to show you what it takes to repair some rot, some bug damage. Still need a lot of work done underneath here. This stonework needs to all be redone. Actually, that doesn't even exist. I don't know where it went. I never spoke to the previous owner about it, but this all needs to be dug out, graveled. Drainage needs to be put in here so that it goes out to the field so we don't have some ice heave. So there's a lot of work to do, and then the foundation wall right there inside needs to obviously be repaired. All that clapboard and all that stuff is easy peasy. This was the hard part, ripping it out, finding, and basically admitting to yourself, this has to go, it cannot stay. That's the hardest part, is fixing up these old houses, is admitting to yourself, there's so much that needs to be done. Let's just do it while we're here now. So many times in these old houses, people do a little patch, a little patch, a little patch. They don't want to confront the reality. And I don't know the previous owner very well enough to ask him. I think this was a big problem for him. It was one of those things where it was like, I don't really know what to do here. I might have to just get rid of the house because this is too much for me. And there's still a lot to do. Still got to do all that foundation work. For the next couple of videos, I'm going to be focusing on getting the sill plate taken care of here. This whole monstrosity has to be taken care of. There is no foundation here. My gut tells me to rebuild this whole end, so I'm going to rebuild this whole end. But then I got to rip all this concrete out and see what's going on underneath there. This gives me a slight bit of hope. Wherever there's flashing, I'm hoping there's going to be some solace. I'm going to have to break all this concrete out and redo all the stonework underneath there and see how healthy the sill plates are. I don't have a lot of faith. The house is actually kind of light, considering I can lift it up pretty easily with those screw jacks. There's a lot of work ahead of me, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. This type of thing that's, when you're out of your comfort zone, is when you learn the most. So that's, for me, this is one of those projects. This house is way out of my comfort zone, but I'm totally open for the challenge. Thanks for watching. Episode 3 coming up.